All right, guys, we are still reading. We're going to go on and try to do one more chapter today, and then we're going to take a break because I've been burning the midnight oil, I'm telling you. But I do sleep good in the day. Well, not really in the day, but when you get like 3 or 4 in the evening, that's when I wind down. Now, I just want to go back and bring some things into your remembrance here. Now, Joseph, remember, he was thrown in jail because of the wife. She said he came in to mock me. In other words, he came in to rape me. So the Bible says, I'm going to go back and refer to you what it said here in 39. It was scrutiny. It was under scrutiny what she did. She kind of scrutinized things. That's why he was put in jail. It says here, let me explain to you what happened with this wife. It says Genesis describes Joseph's life in Potiphar's house, and particularly his interaction with Potiphar's wife. So, according to verse 7, she carefully scrutinizes Joseph. She scrutinizes him. Remember, I told you, she kept asking him to come in here and lie with me every time he came into the house to do his business for, the homestead, because he was in charge. He had to go in there and do whatever he had to do, order this or count that or whatever. She carefully kept saying, come lie with me, come lie. One day, when he went into the house, nobody was there. Well, where there was always butlers and maids and people there. Okay, this day the house is empty, right? So here it is. It says, she carefully scrutinizes Joseph, and then eventually she propositions him. And when he refuses, she manipulates the situation to make it appear that Joseph has acted inappropriately. And so he is thrown into jail. And in his time and place, attempted rape was a capital offense if you attempted rape. So she says, he tried to rape me. He tried to rape me. The milder punishment Joseph receives, he receives milder punishment. It suggests that Potiphar does not believe his wife. Furthermore, the king's prison was a place for political prisoners and would hardly have even been expected to accommodate foreign slaves guilty of crimes against their masters. Another very telling observation is that the prison was in the basement of Potiphar's house. Joseph was thus demoted. So Joseph, he maintains persistent good character. He is not enslaved by his circumstances. So everything that happened to him, he did not let it come up upon him that, he did not play the victim of his circumstance. He didn't play the victim role. He just went on and maintained the person that he was because he didn't do this, right? So while Joseph was in Potiphar's jail, God bring some influential and unexpected guests, which is the cupbearer and the baker. And the butler and the baker are not guilty of some minor indiscretions or inadvertent offense against Pharaoh. They had greatly offended him, something they did. So Joseph's role is to act as a servant to these men in the course of serving them. He also interprets some dreams for them. So Joseph was just being a servant in the prison. Now, when he interprets the dream, he is careful, however, to give God the glory for his interpretive gift. Now, anyway, so that's what happened before. I told you about when we was in the other section. I was telling you about what he was doing for them. So he became a servant in the prison, but God found favor with him. Whatever he did not assume a victim mentality. He did not sink himself down to the circumstances. Like he had been accused. He did mention one time to the butler. He said, "When you get out, mention me so that I can get out of this place." He knew he was in the wrong place, but he didn't let it become a depressive spirit of his to inflict upon him that he couldn't be a person as a person he was meant to be. See what I'm saying? He didn't sink down to the circumstance of what the thing was because he knew he didn't do it. He didn't sink down to the circumstances of it. He just kept on maintaining who he was. He didn't play, "Oh, woe is me. I'm in jail. I've been accused. He become a victim. He become a victim of it and start feeling those emotional feelings of enslavement to yourself. You know, enslaving your own self because it's what somebody said. Enslaving your mind. He didn't get down on that level. He was like up here because God was constantly dealing with him. He had to keep his stuff. He had to keep his emotional ability up high, his standards up high, you know, what he felt and what he thought. He had to keep everything uplifted to God because God was working with him. That's how come he was in charge of this, he was in charge of that. Now, one more thing I want to tell you about, then we're going to get on to chapter 42, about them brothers who threw him in the well. So let me just go back. I'm going all the way back here in the beginning because we on chapter 42. We almost getting ready to be through with Genesis. Let me remind you of the beginning of the book. The first thing, Noah had a son. Noah's son was named Abraham. Now Noah's son, Abraham, I'm going to tell you what happened with Abraham. I'm gonna remind you about Abraham. Well, the son was not called Abraham. He was called Abram. He had a son of Nahor. Nahor, you know, he has a group of brothers. And the son was called Abram. So Abram became Abraham. You know, just like Jacob became Israel. So what happened with Abraham, he ended up taking like his half sister. He married to his uncle's child or something like that. They were kind of in the family realm of each other, Sarah. So when he married Sarah, Sarah was barren. She couldn't have no children. She was barren, right? So for many years, you know, he loved her and all. He loved Sarah. He loved her. That was his wife. You know, he wanted Sarah. And he found out Sarah could have no children. Isn't that something? So Sarah had a maid. The maid was named Hagar. I just want to take you back. The maid named Hagar, who worked under Sarah, you know, kept keep her up and all her stuff. She was fertile. So Sarah said, well, you've been praying to God for this offspring. Well, let me tell you something. A man bears seed in his womb. A man carries a seed. Now, a woman, if she's fertile, she's the soil. The man plants the seed in the soil. And pooh, a beautiful little sparkling baby comes up. That's the bud. That's the flower that comes out, right? A bouncing baby boy. Hey, they say, pooh, pat it on the butt. That's a boy, that's a girl. And they get to, and they so beautiful and cute when they come out. Everybody love them. Like, let's take Pampers and all this stuff over to the baby shower. That's what happened. A man has a seed in him. So this man is circumcised. The man needs to be circumcised at birth so that he is kept clean. That keep the man from getting infection, right? So when you go into the woman have a uterus. Well, these are not, these are 18 or older videos. I'm just going to tell you. A woman has a uterus. A uterus is not made the way that a man is made. A man is carrying a sack of seeds in his down here. He's got, you know, I'm going to tell you, you guys watch this. We all men and women. He's got a penis. He's got a nut sack. In his nut sack is nuts. What does nuts do? He puts seeds in soil. The soil he goes into the woman is her uterus. When he goes in, he looking to make a budding baby come up out of there, right? A budding baby. Oh, a little baby came out. So she must not be touched. She must not be touched. She must not be someone that's spoiled. They say when a woman is touched, she's spoiled. That's what the old people say. She's spoiled. She's been touched already. So sometimes women become barren because they have been raped or they have been touched or they have been constantly letting people get into their soil, and that soil ain't no good. It ain't no good. Okay? I'm just going to tell you. But a woman who have good soil inside the uterus, the soil is good, it's going to bear a baby. It's going to, the seed, when the man put the seed in there, 9 months later, boop, there it is. Oh, baby boy, baby girl, come right out. That's your baby, right? So anyway, let me tell you what happened. Abraham kept asking the Lord, right? The Lord said, I'm going to give you, he said, you're going to have descendants that's the stars in the sky. There's so many stars you can't even count. He said, and I'm going to make a great nation of your seed. I'm going to make a great nation of all the seed that you bear. In other words, when I go into my wife and I put a seed in that soil, every time I go in there with her, boom, a baby, 9 months, rest, let her get her strength out. Boom, here come another one, another bedding baby coming out. Boom, let her rest, let her eat up and get her strength out. Boom, going there again. Here come another one. So this is what Abraham said. Abraham went to God. He kept praying. He said, wait a minute. He said, I'm not getting no seed from my soil. She's barren. He said, she not. And so he couldn't figure it out. So Sarah told him, go into my maid Hagar. She's very beautiful. So he went in and he had sex with Hagar, right? Hagar had a baby and named the baby Ishmael. And so Ishmael was Abraham's first son, right? The Ishmaelites. And so the Ishmaelites had a lot of seed and offspring. Ishmael had children. And so later on, when Sarah got real old, years, somehow her soil became fertile. God said, I'm going to make you able to bear a baby. And told her, the angel came to her and said, when your time come, I'm going to be with you. So he had to go and hold her hand because she was too old to have a child. He had to go there and help. The angels had to help her have a baby. So she had the baby. Abraham named the baby Isaac. So Isaac was his only son. Now, you got to look at the way the faith worked. Look at this. She was barren until she was very old. Now here come the seed that she had. So when she died, she was able to say she had one seed. But when she had the baby, Hagar got in her child, they started mocking and making fun. You didn't have it. They got jealous, right? So Sarah said, kick her out of my house. Because how be it that this woman waited almost 100, she was 68 years, she was 68 years old when she was in her late 60s when she had the baby. She wasn't 100. She lived to like 115 or something, but she was like 68 when she had the child. She was in her 60s. And most women, when they get in their mid-50s, about your mid-50s, 55, you ain't gonna have no more. If your cycle stop in your 50 and your mid-50s and 5 years later there's no blood, there's no way you can lay a seed in there and bring out a baby, because you got to have a blood supply. That's why when you get pregnant, what they give you when you go? Iron. They give you a big bottle of iron pills. And they say eat plenty of fruits and vegetables and take this iron pill once a day. It takes a lot of blood to make a seed. A seed comes from blood and from God. So and then the seed comes from the man. He put the seed in the man. He put the soil in the fertile ground, the implantation of the seed. And the woman, not only does she take the seed in her womb and she nurtures it for 9 months, when it come out, she's still nurturing that child. She's still mother. She's still nurturing with her whole body. She nurtures life with her whole body. A man, he nurtures by way of reason and wisdom. He's going to go in and do his thing, of course. He's going to let the seed out. I'm going to throw some seed over here, he say. I'm going to throw some seed around in some soil. So he had a baby by Hagar. Sarah agreed, I'm going to let you go ahead and lay with Hagar. But she did not want him to lay with her in a loving way. And she looked at him and she said to Abraham, you have taken her to your chest, and she said, this is not right. And so Abraham said, do what you must with her. I don't care. You know, he had fallen in love with her because he slept with her. She was a virgin. That was his, you know, it wasn't his first because his wife was his first love. And he had already had sex. But when he slept with her, she had not been touched. So Hagar was a virgin, so she had Ishmael. She had a son, you know, and Sarah knew. Sarah said, go sleep with her, you know, because he knew. Sarah said, you know, she's virgin, she's not touched. Sarah said, go with my maid and have a baby. And that's all he was supposed to do. He was not supposed to fall in love with her, you know. So he told Sarah, because he loved Sarah, he said, do what you want to do with her. I don't care. You know, he said, you know, I just want a seed. I just want an offspring. So she did have a seed. But so years later, Sarah had a seed in her 60s, and this seed was named Isaac. Now, Isaac was the promise that God gave to Abraham. Abraham prayed. He said, I need a seed. He said, you give me all this land. You give me all of this. He did have Ishmael. Ishmael was a seed that was help. See, because when he had Ishmael, was a boy baby. The boy could go out there and help with the land, the flock, or whatever. So when Sarah had Isaac, Abraham was so happy. And then God told Abraham to bring the baby up and sacrifice the baby. Bring him up on the altar, you know, and sacrifice him. Burn him on the wood like he was a lamb. And he went and put wood on that boy up on the hill on the mountain like he was going to sacrifice him. And Isaac said, Father, where's the lamb? And then you putting the wood on me to burn. And so when he got up there, the angel said, move that wood off that baby. God just wanted to test you, you know. Don't put that wood on that child. And he said, leave that child alone. And looked over, he said, turn around, look over in the bush. There was a ram in the bush. He took that ram and put it on there. And everybody was happy, you know. But I wanted to just see if he would be willing, because he had waited so many years for that baby to come from Sarah, because he was in love with Sarah, you know. He wanted her to have his baby. And she did. She had Isaac. She had one baby, you know. Sarah lived to like 115 or something like that. She lived to ripe old age, and so did Abraham. Now, Abraham, his name at first was Abram. But look at the fact that out of a barrenness, a child of promise was born. She was barren. She couldn't do nothing. She had nothing going on down there. No front. The soil was not rich. The soil was not rich. I'm telling you. She must have had a cycle like a day or 2 days. She didn't have like a heavy cycle. She had like, boop, your cycle's over. You know, she didn't have a good blood that was constantly turning over. Because what happens with the woman down here, she's going to have a period once a month. It means she's still fertile. When she having her cycle, she can have a baby because she's still ovulating, and she's still, because what a period does is cleanses off. It cleanses off what's down there. And then the next couple of 30 days, it's built back up again. That lining where that seed is put in there from the man. God does this. That lining is built up for a seed out of that nut sack. That seed come in that soil, which the lining of the uterus is the soil, and the man has the seed. When they get together and they make love, bam, the seed hit the soil. Just like you want a plant to grow. And the plant, the baby boy or girl, that's your plant. It came out. That's new life. And so what happened is, let me tell you what happened. Isaac was the seed of promise, right? So they had Ishmael, and then they had Isaac. Isaac was blessed of God. Now, Isaac was blessed. And let's go back over here. Something I wanted to tell you about Isaac. Anyway, what Abraham was about was everybody had to be circumcised. So when Isaac was born, being 8 days old, God said, circumcise Isaac. Make sure you cut off the fat of the penis down here. Because God knew that this is one seed that I'm going to keep bearing seed with. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to keep turning this seed over that he bring forth. I'm going to keep giving up the land, keep bringing beautiful babies in the world through this man. Cut that fat off of that penis so when it come time and he's ready, things gonna work. He gonna be clean. He won't be messed up and defiled down there. So what happened here, and also he was Jewish. So it has something to do with sometimes the Jews and the Gentiles, whether they were circumcised or not circumcised, something like that. But when Abraham was 100 years old, and Sarah, they say 100 years old, you know, it might not be counted exactly as 100. It might be 60s or 70. But Sarah was like 68 when she had Isaac. And Hagar had already had Ishmael. So Ishmael was older than Isaac. Now, Isaac was offered and everything. Now, Isaac, when Isaac took before Abraham died, he said, my one son needs a wife. Remember, I told you he sent the servant out there to find his wife. He said, go back to where I was raised and get the wife. And when he went back to get the wife, I believe it was Rebecca he found for Isaac. I believe it was Rebecca. Because, yeah, it was Rebecca. Rebecca watered all of the camel and everything. Watered all of the camel. So now Rebecca and Isaac get together, right? And then they have some offspring. And the same thing, Isaac was promised children and everything. Rebecca and Isaac have Esau and Jacob, right? Now they skipped a generation. Rebecca and Isaac, they were having their offspring and everything. But when you skip them, when you get to Rebecca and Isaac had children. They had Esau and Jacob. Esau and Jacob were like still in the blessings and things like that. But anyway, Jacob was the baby and Esau was the firstborn, but they were twins. They were born together. So Jacob was Jacob was the one that married Rachel. He wanted Rachel. He did not want what was the other one name? It was two of them. She had a sister. Rachel had a sister from her dad. Let me see who that sister was. But anyway, he ended up with his first wife. It wasn't Rachel. He worked 7 years to get Rachel. And then he was drunk, and the woman came in to him with the veil on, and he made her pregnant. And that, I think it was Hannah, was Rachel's sister. And Hannah was older, but you were supposed to marry the older before the younger. And so what happened with Jacob was, I think it was Hannah, Hannah and Rachel. So he married Hannah. Then about a week later, he told the dad, Laban, I'm going to work 7 more years. He said, I want Rachel. So he already had Hannah. So he worked some more years and he got Rachel. He went into Rachel. They didn't have no birth control back then. He went in there to have sex with her. Rachel became his wife. So he had 2 wives. He had Hannah by mistake, and then he had Rachel, the one he really wanted. She was the youngest one. So he finally got his hands on Rachel after he kept working all them years, working the land and tending the flock. Had to pay the father for the wives. You had to pay the bride's prices. You can't get the woman. You got to pay the money. So Jacob didn't have the money, but he said, I'll work your land for you and help your cows grow and help you get, abundant, because if you had cows that were having offspring and you had corn and field and stuff, you could get money from that. So he made an agreement with Laban, the father. He said, for me to get the wife, the one I want, I'll work for you. Because he knew that Isaac back here, he knew that he knew how to do that between him and his brothers. His brother was out there a hunter, but he was the one that worked the land at home. So he worked the land for so many years. He ended up with Hannah and Rachel. Now, Hannah was having children after children after children. Rachel was barren. It skipped a generation, right? Skipped. The next generation was Rachel. Rachel And Jacob, they couldn't have no children. But now, after Rachel got old for some reason, her soil became rich. Her uterus started giving in where she could have children. So she had Joseph. Joseph was her firstborn, right? She had Joseph, and I think, what was the other one she had? She had another baby, Joseph, and he had a brother. She had about three. She had Joseph, she had Reuben, and she had someone else. But anyway, Jacob's name became Israel. He started having double offspring. He was having wives. He was having babies from Hannah. Hannah had 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 boys or something like that. And then Rachel had 3 boys. But when Rachel was having her last one, I think she had 3 or 4. She died trying to have the last one. I don't know if she had got old or just got tired. So Joseph was born from barrenness. Isaac was born from barrenness. They were born from women that couldn't have offspring. But somehow the Lord made their soil fertile. And when the soil became fertile and the seed went in, a child of promise came out. A child of promise. You see what I'm saying? So now, it's like nothing, from nothing, something beautiful came. Rachel couldn't have no children. But when she had the first one, Jacob said, I'm going to name this baby Joseph. He said, this is my heart. This is my apple of my eye. So it's like when the fathers have a baby from a woman that can't have no baby, and finally she have a baby, that's the seed that they love the most. And so Jacob loved Joseph. He had a heart for him. He loved him so much. And he had Esau, of course, but Esau was from Hannah. But Joseph, his father, loved. He said, because this is from the wife that I really wanted. You know, he worked hard to get Rachel, and only to find out that Rachel couldn't have offspring. But he was already having offspring from Hannah because she was very fertile. They both were virgins, but Hannah was older. So when he got Rachel in his homestead, he had children, but Joseph was the first. Now, was Joseph the first? Because Joseph was the youngest, I think, of his babies. I don't know if she died having Joseph or Reuben. But anyway, let's get on with the next chapter, which is 42. But all I wanted to tell you was sometime you can have, they were children of promise. They were promised from God. God said, I'm going to give you a seed when you were barren. He told Sarah she was barren and she had a seed. He told Jacob he was barren and he had a seed of his lineage, the one that he married. Because Hannah was the sister, though, of Rachel, you know, but he didn't pick her. He didn't pick her. He was just giving her by the father by mistake. So he ended up with both sisters as wives. Now, and then Abraham did the same thing, but Abraham's wife told him to go in with the other lady. So that ended up 2 nations. And when you have children from different women, they make these children nations, became nations of them, because their children, they like the maid has so many or the sister has so many, and then these children became nations because the one that could have, they had so many, but the one that couldn't have, they had 1 or 2. You know, they could have barely any, but the 1 or 2 that they had, they were true. They were promised because God said, I'm going to give you this or that, but they couldn't see that it would happen. They said, I haven't had a seed by my wife, or she haven't bear me no children. You know, they couldn't see that. They said, I don't think she's going to have no child. I don't think I'm going to have an heir or seed to leave behind my legacy to. They kept saying that, I can't see it, you know, but they saw it. The wives didn't see. The wives said, well, I can't, you know, they didn't feel like they were going to see it. They didn't have faith. They didn't have the faith that they should have. But the husbands kept saying, the Lord said he was going to give you a seed. You know, they kept trying to make a baby with her. The Lord said he was going to give me a seed through you, that I'm going to have a child through you to leave my legacy to. They kept telling their wives that, you know, going in with her, trying to get the baby. And the wives kept saying, well, I ain't had it. I don't believe it. But eventually they began to believe. And then they had the baby. Okay, so here in Genesis 42. Now I got 30 minutes just talking to you about what happened in the past. Isn't that something? Okay, Genesis 42. We'll read a little bit of this and take a break. Now, when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, this is Jacob. He's back there. He think his son is dead, named Joseph, the one he loved. He had more and more, and oh, my son, he think he dead. But there was a famine, and there was no food. Jacob said to his sons, look one upon another, and he said, behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get up, down thither, and go buy us from thence, that we may live and not die. They had gotten so hungry because they had nothing to eat. He said, go down there and buy some corn. And Joseph then, brethren, went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, let peradventure mischief befall him. He said, let Benjamin stay here, because I don't want nothing to happen to him, because he remembered what happened to Joseph. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in land of Canaan. So famine was all around them. But from one place they could get food was in Egypt. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all people of the land. Now Joseph had become older. He had become much older. Remember, he had two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh was, he said, I forget my place. He named Manasseh mean to forget. He in other words, he had a little remorse about what happened. He said he wanted to forget his past, that it even existed. He wanted to forget it. He didn't even want to remember it. So he said, I'm gonna name my first son Forget. He said, I don't want to think about my past. Manasseh. He said, I want to forget the past of where my heritage is. He didn't want to think. He said, I want to forget about it. Because now he had become fruitful. And he was in charge. And he had money. He had whatever. He had his wife. He said, I don't care about what happened in the past. Let me forget about that. And so Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them. They came down to buy corn. But he made himself strange unto them. And he spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, whence come ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not. You know, because Joseph was in his 30s now, 35 or whatever, 35, 40. He done got older now, not 17 anymore. And they said unto him, nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servant come. He said, we are all one man's son. We are true men. Thy servant are not spies. In other words, his brother said, we're not spies. We're good men. We need to buy food because we're hungry in the land of Canaan. And he said unto them, nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. He said, you see the famine, so now you coming. This is what Joseph said. And they said, thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. So Jacob had 12 sons. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. He had some more sons, and he had the youngest stay with his father. And Joseph said unto them, that is it that I spake unto you, saying, ye are spies. He said, just like I said, you guys are spies. He know who they was, but he said, y'all are spies. And hereby ye shall be proved. He said, I want to prove that y'all are not spies. He said, by the life of Pharaoh, ye shall not go forth hence. He said, except your youngest brother come hither. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely ye are spies. So if you accuse somebody of a spy, they're going to get killed by the sword. So he said this. He said, go get your youngest brother. Because, see, he was the youngest. He said, go to your father and bring me the youngest here. He said, I'm going to put all y'all in jail till you bring back the youngest brother. Make sure he not dead. like they tried to kill him. He said, I want to make sure they didn't kill the youngest, you know. And he put all of them in jail for 3 days. And Joseph said unto them, the third day, this do and live, for I fear God. He said, in the third day I'll let you live. If ye be true men, let one of your brethren, he said, if you are true, like you said, he said, let one of your brethren bound in the house of your prison go carry corn from the famine of your houses. He said, I'm going to let one of y'all take corn back. But bring your youngest brother unto me. Bring me the young child. And so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so, because they said, our father kept our youngest son with him. Because what he said when he sent them out, he said, pre-adventure, I don't want nothing to happen to my youngest. Just like, you know, he was thinking in his mind, my youngest child, Joseph, he went out and he got killed. He said, you guys go by yourself. I'm going to keep the youngest one here with me. And they said one to another, we are verily guilty concerning our brother. They felt guilty concerning that Joseph, you know, what they had done to him. And that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. They thinking about what they did. And Reuben answered them, saying, spake I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child? He said, didn't I tell you not to sin against that young child? And ye would not hear me? Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. They said his blood required of us, because they thought he was killed, but he wasn't killed. Because when Reuben went back, the coat was there. He said, they thought a wild animal came and took the body and ate him, you know. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. He had an interpreter talking to them. And he turned himself about from them and wept. He turned his head and cried. Return to them again and commune with them. And he took from them Simeon and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And thus did he unto them. Okay, I might have this going on long. Okay, guys. So he gave them money and corn, and he said, go back and get your brother. I'm going to take a break because it's my 37 minutes. He said, go get your brother. And he said, when I see their youngest brother, I won't kill y'all as spies. He accused them of coming in as spies because there was no food nowhere else, right? So he said, they coming here to take all we got in Egypt, you know. But he knew who they were. When he saw them coming and he saw their faces, he knew those was his brothers. But he wanted to make sure the youngest child wasn't killed by them. He said, you take the corn back to your father and your land, but bring me the youngest back, and I'll let your other brothers out of jail. Take a break.